Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Thank you so much for being here. Welcome. Feel free to sit down closer if you feel so. We're very happy to be here. I'm here with my partner in crime, Aaron. How's it going?
It's going wonderful. Hello, Carlos. Welcome, everyone.
Very happy to welcome you to our session on Einstein One Studio. We're going to be focusing specifically on Einstein Copilot, and we'll show you Einstein Copilot Builder as well. Without any further ado, let's take a few minutes to read the forward-looking statement. Thank you. Okay, that's a very bad joke. Sorry. Okay, that was a very bad joke. Okay, I promise I won't repeat it again. But you've seen this slide. We've seen these slides many years. Remind your customers, your partners, to make their purchasing decisions on products that are generally available. We're going to be covering roadmap. Einstein Copilot is beta. Hence, this forward-looking statement makes a lot of sense. And with that, let's kick it off. So, AI is essentially changing the world, the way we are interacting with software. And we have an opportunity that we're actually grabbing with Einstein Copilot. So, if you think about it, we're actually going from a click-based experience in software, in applications, to using the most natural asset or the most natural interface that we all have, which is language, natural language. And this is possible and powered by conversational AI in this new wave or in this new realm that is bringing with generative AI. So we're going from if-then case statements to essentially using LLMs to allow us to provide and create experiences. And we're going from leveraging traditional transactional database to leveraging data across the organization, data in Salesforce, and data accessible through Salesforce. If we take a step back and we think about the way we would configure or build traditional chatbots, let's take a few seconds to kind of like uncover, what that entails. First, you need to think about which conversational flows I would like my customers to land in, right? And inside each conversational flow or branch, what are the message or the messages that I want to basically output? What information I have to collect? What actions do I need to trigger? And I need to do that in a kind of like a tree-based type of approach. And I need to think up front, what are the different ways in which customers can request information or to accomplish a certain task? And once you have defined that, you then need to train those branches so that customers can land in there, right? So you need to train an intent classification model. And once you've done that, you need to hook it up to an entity recognition model so that you can extract the right data. And so what happens if you actually need to leverage a few languages? You also need to provide high quality utterance training data in those languages. You see where we're getting at? It's actually a very big endeavor, and it requires a lot of maintenance, and that's why you end up with this type of graph that you see here on the slide. Now, when we think about Einstein Copilot, it would be fantastic if you guys kind of like follow along in this journey with me. Let's start all the way on the right. I think we all are used to thinking about LLMs to generate content, right? So help me translate this text from English to Spanish. Transform this text as if you were a 5-year-old, for example, or as if you were an expert in so-and-so, in such and such area. Like, we know that LLMs are really good at that transformation capability. We've played with the different LLM providers out there, and that's, I think, is already a given. And that's kind of like the last mile here, the outcome mile, like generating the response and using now these systems to help us craft beautiful responses. But we can also use LLMs all the way upstream to essentially understand the user request. And with that understanding, which means to basically accomplish the task that before you would use specific models for intent classification, for entity extraction, or for sentiment, right? Classification or analysis, right? We can use LLMs to do that. And also we can use LLMs to reason and plan accordingly as a function of the user request, how to fulfill essentially what the user is asking. And this is how Einstein Copilot works. It starts with this question, or if you want to get fancy, with this prompt. A prompt is just a fancier or more accurate way of saying a user question, a user request, an instruction to the system. Once the system, Einstein Copilot, gets this instruction, then it is able to break it down. It is able to identify what is the intention that the user has, right? What is the intent in the query? And it also does something that is very exciting. Because it knows what actions are registered to it, it will be able to say, based on this user request, and based on the actions that I know that I have registered, I will come up with a plan. My plan actually includes a number of actions that then it will execute to fulfill the user request. Now, what's going to happen here? Each one of these actions, and we'll double click on them in a second, are going to provide an output. And so the system, the Einstein Copilot system, will take the output of these actions and basically paraphrase a beautiful Gen AI response using the characteristics that we talked about in the beginning. And you can do that iteratively. You can revise that and you can refine it. And that is essentially the main difference from the traditional realm to this new realm, where not only we're using the power or the capabilities of LLMs to generate beautiful responses, but we're also using them to plan, to reason, and to execute tasks in order to fulfill a user request. And we do this on top of our trust layer with all of the capabilities that the trust layer provides. Just to give you an example, the ability to mask sensitive data, like personal identifiable data, for example. Control systems that will identify if there's a prompt injection actually before sending the request out. Or when responses comes in, if the content is harmful, identify if this is toxic so that it actually doesn't get sent back to the user, or that we basically have a guardrail there. And that is Einstein Copilot. It's a trusted AI assistant that essentially is going to give your users a completely different way to interact with Salesforce. If you think about it, it is a way for your users to chat with your CRM. Your CRM has data, your CRM triggers processes, and now you can engage with those conversationally as if you were just basically chatting with your CRM, with your Salesforce apps. Now, what's interesting here is that this is going to be an experience that you will see across all Salesforce apps. So an account executive will basically be engaging with Einstein Copilot as well as a customer service rep on Service Cloud, right? All in with this ability that is built in with trust. And what we'll show you today, we'll do a special focus on how you can configure Einstein Copilot with clicks, of course, and leveraging the one thing that you guys have been doing already, which is leveraging the existing Salesforce actions that you know and love. And we'll double click on that in a second. Introducing Einstein One Studio, and we're going to do a special focus on Copilot Builder today. But of course, Studio encompasses Prompt Builder and Model Builder, and there are sessions that are dedicated on each and every one of those builders as well, including a workshop on Einstein Copilot that will happen right after this session in one of the classrooms that are here. It's going to be actually at 400 at 4 p.m. So that would be definitely something that would be very interesting if you guys are interested. It's completely hands-on. It's 90 minutes. You get to basically keep a demo org for a few days. And basically we open the lid and we actually share all of that with you. So we're going to dive into Copilot Builder. We'll have Aaron walk us through that. So why don't we actually skip this one very quickly, just announcing that we have released Einstein Copilot in beta, February 29th, and that we're obviously extremely excited. And with that, why don't we take it away with a little demo?
Awesome. Thank you, Carlos. And thank you, everyone. Very excited to show you Copilot and Copilot Builder here. Carlos, why don't we hop right in? Amazing. So for this demo, I am a sales representative for NTO, which is an organization that sells outdoor equipment to various retailers. I'm a sales rep. I'm new to this stuff. We just rolled out Einstein Copilot. So I log into the console, pull out the Copilot panel, and I've never used it. I want to get started. I'll just ask, what can you do? How do I use this thing? And I'll see Copilot understands my request, thinks it through, and is able to give me a beautiful response suggesting, hey, I can help you write emails. I can help you go through past meeting notes. Now I'm starting to get the gist of what this thing can work, but maybe I'm just a suspicious person. I don't trust it yet. So the first thing I would do as a sales rep with this new technology is put it to the test a little bit. So let's ask it a question. How many accounts in this org belong to me? I'm a good sales rep. I know the answer to this. Let's see if it knows what's going on. And we'll see Einstein Copilot has taken my request, broken it down to figure out what actions are needed to answer, and is able to generate a direct response. Look at that. I have 41 accounts in my org, 41 accounts according to Copilot. Okay, starting to build a little bit of trust. Let's ask again, what's the total amount of all of my opportunities that I own for this quarter? Again, I'm still building trust. Can this thing really answer questions? Is it accurate? Again, we're building a plan. We're thinking through the actions we have available. And we'll see there, almost 5.8 million. Einstein knows that I'm an excellent sales rep, and I have an excellent quarter ahead of me. So, this is exciting stuff. I'm starting to build a little bit of trust, but how do I actually get to work now? How am I going to start digging in a bit here? So, what do I want to focus on today? What are the ones that are closing this month? What's closing soon that I want to actually dig into and move forward these deals as a sales representative? And we'll see again, Einstein's able to tell me, I've got a shorter list of deals closing this month. We'll see 5 deals closing this month, which is fantastic. I want to get to work now. I want to start selling. I want to start closing these deals. Let's see a list of them. Let's start getting into the details. Now, again, what's happening here is turn by turn, Einstein is thinking through what I've said, thinking through the intent, building a plan for how to meet my request using the actions available, and then returning me this useful response. I see here I get a new rich formatted response where I see details of the opportunities that I have that are closing this quarter. This is great. Let's scan the list. Omega Retail, I've talked to that customer recently. I'd love to dig in. Let's see what we can do to move this deal forward. Let's get it closed this month. Let me get a summary. Let's get a summary, and we'll ask for a summary of the third one in the list. And you'll notice there, we didn't say Omega Retail. I didn't provide a record ID. I'm having a conversation. I just say, hey, summarize the third one in the list for me. Let's dig in a little bit more. Again, we're building a plan. We're thinking through those actions. Einstein can summarize. So quickly, just like that, I have a beautiful natural language summary that will show me exactly what's been going on with this opportunity. I can see the probability of it closing. I can see some information about the decision maker at Omega Retail. I can see, okay, what do I want to get done today? This seems like a deal I should be focused on. I should be pushing to close this quarter. What does an executive sales rep think now? Are there more products I could be selling here? What might be of interest to Omega Retail? So I'll ask again, what products could I sell here for this account? Again, Einstein understands natural language, this account. I don't have to spell these things out. And now I see something very custom to my organization. I see that Einstein's be able to look through the account, look through my product catalog, and I get this beautiful, rich component saying, hey, here are 3 products we think Omega Retail would be interested in. There's a sleeping bag, there's a new pair of boots, and there's a tent. I'm like, okay, now we're really getting somewhere. This is helping me do my job. It's helping me find the time to figure out what products I should be talking to this customer about. Now, I know that this Homestead Domi 3 tent, this tent that's been recommended, is a pretty new product release. And I know there's some rules around what we can discount for new products. I don't know do you know the details? I think a Copilot will. So what we'll do here is let's search our knowledge base. Let's search our knowledge base to understand the discount policy for this tent, because I know it's a new product. I think there's something going on here. And what's happening is Einstein is searching through all my knowledge articles, all that unstructured data, to give me a direct answer to my question. I'm able to see here that the maximum discount is 10% for the first year of availability. And we'll slow down a minute here because what we just saw with this action is super powerful. This is available out of the box as a standard action, the answer questions with knowledge action, which means whatever unstructured data you've put in your knowledge articles, is now available conversationally to all of your users to ask questions and unlock all that data. You probably have data in knowledge articles you could use this way today, and you can take advantage of it going forward. Think about the types of questions your users want to ask of your data. All you have to do is save it as articles, and Copilot can put it to use for you just like that. Okay, now we're getting somewhere. I think, okay, I want to meet with Omega Retail. I want to start talking to them about this additional product. But I know they have competitors too. And I think that Sportsbase, one of their competitors, is moving into their territory. Before I meet with them, let me make sure I have the full context. So here I'll ask a question. Are there any highlights or news about Sportsbase expanding their business in California? And Carlos, I'm only a sales rep. This one's a little bit fancy. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what this action's doing?
Yeah, sure. So absolutely, Aaron, and you are a great AE.
I appreciate that.
So the example on knowledge is fantastic, right? We're essentially doing Q&A, which is question answering on top of unstructured data that lives in the org, in this case, right? What we want to do here is do kind of like a similar experience, but with third-party information that's on the web. And specifically here, we're leveraging the HTTP callout invocable action in Flow. If you've ever played with it, you know that what it does, it actually fires or generates an external service behind the scenes. Now, this is a web API from a company called U.com that gives you a web LLM experience. And so when you're essentially querying the web, the response that it comes back to you is a snippet, which is what we have here. And also, it gives you citations. And so we were able to format this response in Flow, and that is exactly what we have here. So we leverage RAG with data in the org, and also we're leveraging here RAG with data coming from the web.
Yeah, it's really incredible stuff to think through. As you think through the use cases for your business, what your users want to ask Copilot, by extending it with custom actions, with Flow, with Apex, you can do things like this in a matter of days, less time than that. Bring all that data to bear in a conversational way. So back to my sales rep hat. I'm almost done. I'm almost ready for my next meeting with Omega, but I have one more question. I know we've met with them before. I meet with a lot of people. I have a pretty bad memory. Well, let's at least make sure we've gone through the notes and understand what we talked about recently. So I'll do the same thing here, where we'll kind of, what were the recent pain points or challenges from our last meeting? And like Carlos said, because that data's there, because we can extend Copilot with these custom actions, we'll see we're able to extract from that unstructured data recent information about what we spoke to this customer about. And now, as a sales rep, I've landed here with a new tool. I've built trust. I've learned about what's going on in my data, what opportunities I have, and I've been able to do the research to gather all the information I need to drive this deal forward and close some business this month, which is pretty incredible. Now, as incredible as that is, I know this is a developer conference, and I'm sure a lot of you are thinking like, that looked cool, but that must be nearly impossible to build. Carlos, I think we should show people that that's not true at all. Why don't we hop into the builders?
Yes. Should we also mention that this is actually leveraging Data Cloud and the vector store with data that is unstructured, that is actually coming from other systems, right? And so meeting notes, just like call transcripts, for example, or recording of meetings, for example, your Google Meet recording, is a wealth of unstructured data. Wouldn't it be nice that you can also chat to it so that you can extract intel? This is essentially what's happening here. And we're using as an example this notion of meeting notes. Every single account has had meeting notes. In the meeting notes, several types of things are discussed, right? Challenges, pains, etc. So you're basically able to do same thing we did with knowledge, same thing we did with the Web LLM API, do Q&A on top of this data.
Beautiful. Okay. Now, Carlos, as he flips over, we're going to switch personas a little bit. Now we're a developer. Now we're an admin. How do we build these tools? How do we build and configure and extend Einstein Copilot? So we'll type in the quick find bar and setup Copilot, and we see two setup nodes. We see Einstein Copilot Actions and our Einstein Copilots. And to start, let's look at the actions. That's where a lot of the functionality we just saw came together. When I landed this Einstein Copilot Actions screen, we'll see here a list of all of the Copilot actions that have been created in this org. Now you'll notice that there's two different types here in the source column. There are Salesforce standard actions and there are custom actions. So out of the box, with no configuration required, Salesforce can answer questions from your knowledge base, like we saw. It can search through your records and answer questions about your opportunities, your accounts, your contacts, like we saw. It can search, it can draft and revise emails. But in addition to all of that power, the magic really comes with those custom actions. That's how we saw bringing together these custom experiences, asking questions about meeting notes, recommending products in a way very tailored to my organization. And what's truly exciting here is that creating custom actions uses the tools you're familiar with and is truly simple. So Carlos, if we click that new Copilot action, let's see just how easy that is. And we'll see that the first step is to select the action type. And if we pause here, you'll see there are 3 options: Apex, Flows, and Prompt Templates. Apex and Flows are the tools you're all familiar with. You've probably built Apex classes before. You probably have tons of flows in your organization. What Copilot allows you to do is unlock all of that work you've already done and orchestrate it using AI, which is truly incredible. And then Prompt Templates, the new member of the party, as we saw launching last week, allows you to write specific prompts determining what the inputs and outputs will be and have specific LLM calls that your Copilot can put to use for specific tasks. So first step, very simple. Just pick which type we want to use. Let's go over the flow for this one. And then the next step, also simple. So which flow do you want to use? And we see all the flows that we've built are available right there. In this case, we're building a custom action to help with product recommendations. So we'll search, we'll find that product recommendations for account flow. We'll make sure it has a unique label and API name, and then click next. And then would you believe it, there's only one screen left to make this available for Copilot, and it's already filled out for us. So we'll see here the Einstein Copilot action instructions. So how does the large language model build that plan and know when to use this action? It's using this instructions field. So when we ask a question, like what products can I sell for this account, it has an action with a description that based on the account record, we can determine what products to recommend. And it goes, that using natural language makes perfect sense for what I need to meet this use case. That's how Copilot builds the plan. It's as simple as writing that one sentence. Underneath that, we see the inputs and outputs for the action. And again, this is all populated because it's a flow. This is all already captured in our flow documentation. We see the inputs here is the account name, which is a string, text type data. And the output is those product recommendations, which is a lightning list. Again, all brought over from the flow. Almost no work needed here. All I have to do is click finish. And this flow is now available for Copilot to put to use for my users.
This is actually where the rubber meets the road, for lack of a better word. This is the most important piece of the flow, if you will, right? Description is all you need. If the description isn't prescriptive enough, the system won't know when to actually invoke or generate a plan with the right action. If the descriptions for inputs and outputs are not prescriptive and semantically meaningful, it won't know when to disambiguate. How are we going to be able to do things like disambiguation? If I tell it that this input is required, and given that description that is there, if the user doesn't provide the information, the Einstein Copilot Planner will ask for this information. Sure, I can help you, but I need this information from you. If the information is supposed to be collected from the user, then we would check this box, right? But if the action is expecting, for example, something like a record ID, which is not something that human users will generally use very fluently. Oh yes, my record ID is XYZ, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, right? That's not going to work. It wouldn't be necessarily collectible by the user, and this would infer that the Copilot will need some system actions that will basically do the transformation for it. We'll show you in one example. Same thing goes for the output. Maybe this is an action that will be used for chaining, in which case it should not be shown in the conversation its result, because its result will be basically to feed another action as an input. And we'll show an example of chaining in a second.
Perfect.
This is part of the code, if you will, right? This will actually be part of the Einstein Copilot Planner configuration. At runtime, the planner knows all of the actions that it has registered or installed in it, and it is able to identify which is the best action or the best sequence of actions to execute the request because of these descriptions. So be as prescriptive as you can. Notice that we're even calling out the API names of the objects that are needed. Another example is going to be underlining what is the format that is expected. If you want a specific date time format, you would have to use an example. If you're coming from the language AI realm, or you have colleagues that are, you've heard about this notion of few-shot training, right? Provide examples as well, right? What is a positive example? What should not be an example? If you're going to work, for example, with postal code, you can use an example. What is the type of format? The more information we can provide, the better the Einstein Copilot orchestration layer will perform.
Amazing. Carlos, how do we find out if this is going to work or not? I think the next step then will be to go to our Einstein Copilots tab and hop into the builder and give this a test. So if we hop over to Einstein Copilots, before we do, if we look along the top, look at all this wonderful content here. I know we're covering a lot today. There's a lot to digest. We have trails, we have blogs, we have help documentation. I know it's easy to gloss over that at the top, but I really encourage you as you come home and start to put this to work to hop into those resources. But for today, let's click into our Einstein Copilot and take a look. So we see here, this is the Copilot that's been created in this org. We see the details of it, what actions are available, system messages, but where the fun really happens, where the rubber hits the road, as Carlos said, is in the builder. So let's click that button, open in builder, and hop in there. This is the Copilot builder experience. And we'll see we have a conversation preview panel where we can simulate a conversation, a section in the middle, we'll talk about in a bit, and then that panel on the right with the actions. But to get started, let's ask a question. Let's see this page in action. So we'll start with the simple question we used earlier, asking the total amount of the opportunities that I own this quarter. We'll see, like we did before, Einstein thinks through that request, understands the intent, sees the actions available, builds a plan, and responds. We get that same response of almost 5.8 million. But now let's focus on the middle of the screen. What we have there is the plan tracer section, which is where we see the details of the reasoning that Copilot did. We see it identify the intent is to aggregate the opportunity amount across all of the opportunities in the quarter. We see which action it used. It used that query records action because we're querying our Salesforce data. And we see the specific inputs and outputs that were used for this request. The query that was used, and then we see it filters opportunities in an intelligent way, and I get that specific result. So what I have here is, as I have a conversation with Copilot, in this builder experience, I can see in detail what actions were used, what plan was built, what were the inputs and outputs. And this is how I can test and tune and debug and think these things through in more detail, which is fantastic. So now that we've got the gist of the center of the screen, that plan tracer, let's take a look at that last panel, the actions panel. This should be familiar from that actions list we saw already. We see here this Copilot's actions. So these are these specific actions that have been registered as available for this Copilot that it can use. And then we have our action library, which is all of the actions that have been created for the org that I can potentially assign to this Copilot. And I can come here to assign or remove actions from a Copilot and then retest as I go. So let's take a slightly more challenging example, and let's see kind of Copilot really put some of this reasoning engine to work. We're going to ask a more complicated question. We're going to ask for the Omega retail account, create an invoice. We had a great meeting. We're ready to sell. Create an invoice for that Homestead Domi 3 tent. Include that discount that we talked about, add 100 items. This is a complicated request. There's a lot going on here, and look at what Einstein was able to do. We have a custom action to handle this, but we have all that information to gather up first. So we've actually run multiple actions and chained them together. First, we've run the identify record action twice. Okay, you said Omega retail. I got to find that exact account record. And we were able to resolve that easily with that identify records action. We did the same for the product. We have that Homestead Domi 310. We used identify records to gather that information. And now that I've found the product, I've found the account, I have all the inputs I need to run our custom action, which is calling out to a stubbed API using MuleSoft and simulates fully creating an invoice for the sales representative based on the information I've provided. And again, I can see the inputs, I can see the outputs, I can see the full detail. And you can see how Copilot is able to reason through tasks and chain together those actions to do something pretty complicated. I don't think anyone enjoys putting together invoices manually. Now you can just conversationally ask that question of Copilot. It will find the relevant data, bring it together for you, and can complete that whole task end to end with one request. Pretty cool. Awesome. Carlos, why don't you take us home?
Yes, with pleasure. So, to wrap up, you can have your customers get started right away with standard actions. And we showed a few examples of platform actions. The ability to do conversational CRM or query CRM, if you prefer how to call it. The ability to use very powerful capability of large language models, which is summarization, right? So this transformation capability, very important. Draft and revise an email is also part of these types of standard actions. And as we move along with fast follows and as our roadmap actually, evolves, clouds are also chipping in, if you will, with verticalized, very specific types of standard Copilot actions, specific for an industry, specific for a cloud, specific for a vertical. So a few examples on the standard ones. We just kind of mentioned a few ones. My personal favorite is actually the knowledge one, because it actually does something very complex and there's actually no configuration for it. So creating a vectorized database on top of unstructured data like knowledge, you basically can just start chatting with your knowledge in a completely whole new way. And there's much more coming soon with clouds, as I said, in the starting the summer release. But of course, you have been building this wealth of, let's say, Salesforce capabilities in your org, in your customers and partners orgs, leveraging the actions that you already know and love. We showed an example on flows. There's the ability to leverage Apex, as well as, calling third-party APIs, using MuleSoft or other ways to engage an HTTP callout. You can use Apex. Flows are actually directly the ES for it, external services. And of course, the new kid on the block, prompt templates. Now that's interesting. And that's maybe something that we could do to actually enhance the experience that we showed. So before the Copilot era, this company had a recommendation engine, leveraging flows, right? And we turned that into a conversational experience. And that's why it is able to give you, given the account, given the industry, given the white space of product that the industry has, suggested products, right? Great. And we use the flow as is. But what if we wanted to explain why to the user? This is where we would use a prompt template, and the prompt template would leverage the output of the flow, and we would ground that prompt template with the information that is already available on Salesforce. And this is how you're going to start kind of mixing all of these different techniques and all of these different action types to really create beautiful and efficient conversational experience. So there is actually a way to do this, right? And these are very high level tips as to how to leverage actions, what is essentially a good description, and so on and so forth. And definitely inviting you to read. There's a few blogs that are already out there for you to leverage custom actions using the Salesforce actions that you know and love. There's another one, very, very good, also about action descriptions, or should I say instructions. And then there's common sense, right? We don't need to apply AI everywhere either, right? And same thing applies for Copilot. What are the questions that we need to ask ourselves? If this is truly a job to be done that we can basically tackle or solve with a conversational interface. Aaron and I actually thought it was a good idea to impersonate the account exec experience, because the account exec is on mobility, right? So you have that same experience on the Salesforce mobile, where the only thing you can focus on is on the conversation. And because you can interact with Salesforce conversationally, that is actually an enhancer of productivity. So what could have happened? I could have said after my meeting as an AE, create this meeting note, the meeting went well, the customer needs a discovery about the advantages of generative AI, and we are going to do a POC with technical architects. In reality, it's a very simple action. You can use a flow to just create a record on Salesforce, but you turn it into a conversational experience, and all of a sudden, this brings productivity to your AE. Or something even simpler, but very powerful. Create a task to call Aaron tomorrow. It's actually just also a flow or an Apex, right? And I didn't even have to type it. I would have my task in my seller home, if you remember the demo, and I can go on, with my day. little wins that bring a lot of value. That's kind of like the exercise or the mechanics, the gymnastics that we encourage you to do. And here's a quick kind of roadmap of things that are coming. So right now, for example, I'll just cherry pick a few things. We have an experience on Salesforce, on the web experience in the org, right? On Salesforce Mobile, we just alluded to. But of course, these conversational flows can go above and beyond these channels, can go on first-party channels that you have already heard of, Salesforce Chat, messaging for in-app, messaging for web, third-party channels, WhatsApp, and the alike, SMS, etc. And right now, for the beta release, Einstein Copilot is English supported, but of course, we have customers all over the world. We're going to start opening up languages, and the very first cohort of languages is what we're calling here FIGS plus J plus P, French, Italian, German, Spanish, Japanese, Portuguese, and these are the things that are coming up. So very, very excited about that. And that's all we have for today, folks. So if you don't mind, and if you want to have a coffee, please, by all means, scan this QR code, give us a feedback on the session. We'd love feedback on the product. We'd love feedback on the session. There's a workshop happening also next door on Copilot. It's 90 minutes. And thank you so much for staying. If someone has a question, by all means, we can take it. We have 4 minutes. Otherwise, enjoy your afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, everyone.